that, you should get a notice to acknowledge the recording. And then my plan is to run through a slideshow that we've prepared and then open it up to questions afterwards, but feel free, since we're a small group, to speak up. It's going to be on shared screen, so I won't be able to see if you're waving at me, but if you make some noise, and let me know if you have a question they want to ask along the way. So I'm going to share my screen and then start our slideshow. So welcome. This is our testing new logo. We're working on a logo that this was designed by somebody who's been helping, that we met a long time ago, who was unhoused, who's been helping us along the way. So we're working on, we're testing it out. So welcome to tonight's information session. My planned agenda for tonight is to talk about our move to Portsmouth Olympic Harbour. To give you some program updates, talk about the state of housing in Kingston, talk about, there's a couple of topics that have been kind of come up recently that people needed more information about, or it seemed like people needed more information about. So we're going to talk about how we measure success. We're going to talk about the couple fires we had, because there's a lot of misinformation about the fires that we want to clear up. We talk about our permanent location options, our needs list for the cabin community, and then open it up to questions that anybody might have. Can everybody hear okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Okay. With me, I have a couple of staff in the background and a couple of residents that are here as well to answer any questions. So we're at Portsmouth Harbour now. And so here's a picture from our move-in day. So we moved onto the property on October 4th. The cabins arrived, and then we moved our residents back in from the hotel and all of their belongings. It's been we like being in Portsmouth Harbour. It's been pretty easy getting residents settled into this community because it feels more homey. Not to knock the Center 70, there's other benefits of Center 70, but at Portsmouth Harbour, because the space is smaller, it's more open, it's more kind of, there's more opportunities for congregation within our common space. It just feels more like a home, and the way the cabins are set up, pointed towards our main door, makes it feel like a little village inside our barrier walls, inside our little space. So this is kind of a amateur picture of our setup of cabins at Portsmouth Harbour. And then what we did for you yesterday was put together a video tour of inside of our common space. So we are sitting in our living room right now, or we'd call it the living room right now, but I'll give you a quick tour as well.
We need a TV.
Yeah. Hello, welcome to our home at Portsmouth Harbour. I just wanted to give you a tour inside our common facilities to see what, show you what amenities our residents have available to them. Right inside our door is our kitchen and our dining area. So this kitchen is available for residents to cook their own meals, and also we have a washing laundry facility. We have a place for shared food, so any food that residents want to have. Sitting here, and then there's a fridge for shared food as well, and a little coffee area. Once our computer set up, we have a computer area. And then in here, we've got a cute little nook for artists to work. and a little reading area, and this is the TV area once we get a TV set up. And then this is our art wall that we're working on. We're going to refinish it and then hang our residents' artwork here. And then in here is our staff office. And then we've got a couple of freezers for residents' food because our bar fridge is a bit small for frozen stuff. And then we've got bathrooms. I'm going to spare you that, but there's 2 bathrooms. And then we have 2 showers as well. This one's a nice big one for people with accessibility needs. So thanks for stopping by. We look forward to speaking with you in person if you drop by. Take care.
When marketers fail to personalize their marketing,
Thank you. Oh, man, I messed that up pretty good.
Are you losing?
Yep, I lost you.
You see
I
them?
am not a professional.
I see them.
Hold on.
Zoom down,
I zoomed out of my Zoom. Yep.
Zoom.
Okay, we're gonna try that again. Somehow I ran right out of the shared screen.
They were stuck there being some Canadian.
Okay.
What is that? David.
Hmm?
Oh,
So I just wanted to, in terms of program updates, I've shared this budget before, but I think there's some new people on the session tonight. So this is our budget for 2023. So our annual budget is about 431,000. It depends on rents that come in and where residents' incomes are. We currently receive $28,000 a month from the city of Kingston to help pay for programming. And then we also collect rents from our residents, depending, and the amounts depend on their income sources. So it's anywhere from 0 if they have no income, $390 if they have Ontario Works income, $556 if they have ODSP income, and then anything else is we work with the residents and come up with a number that makes sense for their budget, but usually 30% of their income. So somebody on CPP, for example, will pay about $550. And then if we have any donations, that's listed here too. We can't really predict those. Most of our expenses, if you come down here, is wages. So most of our expenses is staff. We have 2 staff on 24/7 and they're paid $21 an hour. And then the night shift receive a premium as well. So as you can see, our supplement from the city doesn't even cover our wages. So we have to work extra hard to make sure we're scrounging for donations and for, being very careful about where we spend our money. And then we spend a lot of our money to meet health and safety rules on cleaning supplies. That's one of our biggest expenses. But pretty standard kind of expenses along the way. Our internet does come out to be very expensive, and that's because of the buildings we're in. So first of all, we have to pay for business internet. We can't have home service because we're a business, and Cogeco just won't allow that. But also to get the amount of power we need and bandwidth we need to power 17 cabins, we have to have a business account. But because both Center 70 and Portsmouth Olympic Harbour are in buildings that are cement with rebar, it's really, really difficult to get Wi-Fi through the common space and through out to the cabins. And we've got a number of boosters that we pay for as well, just to be able to get everybody, make sure everybody's got Wi-Fi. So it costs a bit more to have to do that. And then, so I wanted to talk a little bit as well about some job opportunities that have come up, which have been great. So some of our residents got to work with some of the boat owners at Portsmouth Olympic Harbour and help them out because the boat haul out just happened. So all the boats came out of the water and they're on the parking lot now. And so some residents helped with the haul out part of it. Some residents helped pressure wash the bottoms of the boats to get all the ick off that gathered over the summer. And then on top of that, we managed to get an alumni, actually, a position at the Spire, helping them out with some manual labor. So some great job opportunities have come along, and we really appreciate when people are willing to give our residents a chance to help. I wanted to show you as well our family. I'm kind of jumping through links through this presentation because I want to show you where to find information. So we started a family support group at the request of somebody whose family member was experiencing homelessness. This is something that's been on our list of things we would like to launch, but capacity has been a challenge. So we, the person that requested agreed to help me organize it. So that's been really helpful. So the 3rd Sunday of every month, we're now meeting at the Spire from 2 till 4 p.m. And it's family members whose loved ones are experiencing homelessness, and it's a peer support group. So family members sharing information, people that have been attending so far, different ranges of understanding and different ranges of knowledge of resources and things like that. So the group is meant to share information, share resources, educate each other, offer strategies and support, really just support each other as we go, as they're journeying through while their family members are struggling. So again, that's the third Sunday of every month from 2 to 4 p.m. at the Spire. So I have the date available on our website. I always update it so people can find it. And then I'm going to put, once I'm done the shared screen, I'm going to put a whole bunch of links for you guys as well, so that you can kind of see all of these different things as well. So one of the things we're participating in this week, which has been great for residents and staff, is the KFL&A Resilience Symposium. So some of our residents and staff have been offered the opportunity to participate in a number of initiatives in this symposium. And the theme, or the kind of the theme behind the symposium, is trauma-informed care, responding to trauma and understanding the science behind trauma, so that we can better help people who've suffered, and anybody who's experienced homelessness has suffered really significant trauma. So we're really thankful to KFL&A for supporting some of our residents for attending, and some of our staff as well. I'll send you a link to the symposium if you're interested. And I think there might be some ways of sneaking in. Most of it's sold out now, but I'll send you a link for information. As well, this past Sunday, we had a speaking engagement at Sydenham Street United Church, and they recorded it. So if you have some extra time on your hands and you want to hear more about things we talked about, I'll give you the link to the YouTube video, so you can take a look at what we talked about as well. But I'll put that in the link in later. So let's talk about housing, because one of the many goals of our cabin community is to transition people to permanent housing. Permanent housing looks different for different people. It's not just about putting or housing people in an apartment. We have some people who need to be in supportive care. We have some people who need to be in long-term care. So we're not, even though we talk a lot about housing and market housing and apartments and things like that, there's a whole spectrum of housing needs that our residents have. So in terms of long-term care, as many of you might understand, long-term care wait lists are insanely long, somewhere between 3 to 5 years. And just to get the referral to long-term care is quite challenging when you can't pay for private long-term care yourself. And we're in a bit of a pickle right now because we have a couple of residents that need to, their best option is long-term care and being in that supportive environment. And unfortunately, the traditional places that have public long-term care availability have declined the residents from attending. And it's really frustrating because they're just two sweet little old men. I don't understand, but the wait lists are insane, and we have to do a lot of work to really push to get them onto the wait list and then push them up the wait list once we can get them on the wait list. But in terms of market housing, CMHC had a report come out through the summer to look at, what they looked at was the availability of housing for people who are in the lowest 20% of incomes across Canada. And unfortunately, Kingston came up as one of the ones that have a negligible amount of attainable housing available for people who are living in poverty. So you can see from the arrow, if you can see that, there's 2 little stars for Kingston, and that means there wasn't enough data, which means there wasn't enough housing available to actually give a percentage, which, it shows the state we're in, because the people that we're supporting, again, the rents that we're asking for from residents are the same rents they'd be paying for out in the market. So, somebody who's only got Ontario Works for Income, their rent portion of that, or their shelter allowance of that, is only $390. It is absolutely impossible. You can't even find a room for $390. You can't find a closet for $390. Even with ODSP, their shelter portion is $556. You can't find a room. The grossest scumlord, we call him scumlord in Kingston, who has unsuitable properties full of rats and bugs and not meeting property standards. He's charging $800 a room right now. So anybody on, yeah, at a minimum. And so, even that prices anybody whose income is OW out of the market for housing. Mostly what we're seeing in terms of, apartments in the market rate is somewhere between $1,600 and $1,800 usually, and higher than that. But the ones we look at for 1-bedroom apartments, we look at bachelors a lot. We do have a number of residents who have a rent supplement called the Canada Ontario Housing Benefit, COB. And that supplement gives them up to $1,211 for rent. It's almost impossible. When I do searches for housing, I look for anything under $1,400 and I get very few options. Most of those options are rooms shared with students, which will never, our residents will never be able to get into. So availability is a huge challenge for getting people housed. What we're seeing as well as corporate landlords are charging deposits on applications. This is illegal. It's in the Residential Tenancy Act that you can't do this, but they're doing it anyway. And so often right now applications are asking for last month's rent with their application. So if you're in the position that our residents are in, usually last month's rent comes through the city of Kingston. You have to have a lease in your hand, and a real housing opportunity in your hand to be able to go to the city of Kingston and say, hey, I've got this housing opportunity, I need last month's rent. You can't get it for the application. So it just takes those housing opportunities right off the market for out of our residents can't apply for those kind of situations. So we really try to look for independent mom and pop type landlords that will play a little bit more fair.
The return rate on that deposit on
Yeah.
applications is up to 45 days.
Yeah, so we're seeing a timeline, a long time to the deposits are getting cashed. It's not like they're holding a check. And then it's taking up to 45 days to get those deposits back. And we've seen a number of situations recently where the deposits haven't been returned. And if you can imagine, you're struggling to even have housing or put food in your belly. You can't afford to have to fight a landlord to get your deposits back. Or your last month's rent back. The other thing that is asked for a lot is credit history. And very often the people that we support, have done everything they can to maintain their housing and, have probably ended up with colorful credit history or not great credit history. And then proof of employment. So if somebody is on OW or ODSP and they can't provide proof of employment, of course, or CPP, but proof of employment is always requested on applications, especially from corporate landlords. So it's a way to discriminate against the people. And we've had a number of situations where we have lovely people ready to go to housing who have applied for apartments, and as soon as the rental manager sees that their income is ODSP, they're removed from consideration. Just by haven't met them, haven't looked at their history, haven't talked to us about, how their time with us here, they just remove them because of their source of income, which is really unfortunate because it's guaranteed. You can direct deposit the rent rate to the landlord, so it's guaranteed rent for the landlord. So the discrimination that we see in housing is significant, and it makes it really difficult to get people housed. And then of course the supportive and long-term options are really quite limited in Kingston. So if we need people to go to supportive housing, they're not capable to live on their own. There's very few spaces available for that, and we talked about long-term care options as well.
And some landlords have even started putting 2 single beds into a room and renting it as a shared room.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of it being $800 for the one room, now they're charging $650 or $700 per person in that room.
Shared room.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
seen that a lot lately.
I wanted to talk, there's been some, talk about how we measure success. So knowing that housing market is so challenging, it's pretty exciting when somebody finds a housing situation and gets to go to housing. But our program currently is measured only on whether somebody was housed. And that, we think is an unfair measurement because we do a lot more than try to find people housing. So in the time that we've been open, in the 18-ish months that we've been open, we've supported 35 unique individuals. Currently we have 17 residents. We just had a new one move in today. This is exciting. And then so 5 have moved to permanent housing. Of those 5, 3 are still housed in the same location. One unfortunately passed away from lung cancer, and we just held his celebration of life. And one, unfortunately, due to a fire, not of their own making, just the building had a fire. When we found out he was unhoused again, because often people who don't have much money, once there's a fire, they end up back on the streets because there's not a lot of support for them. So when we found out he was going to be unhoused again, we brought him back to the cabins, and as soon as we had an opportunity, and he's currently residing with us looking for housing again. 2 of our residents went to other transition housing programs. So if there's an opportunity for a better fit in another transition house, we will, like, for example, one person moved to a program for people who are Indigenous. They felt that would be more suitable for their needs, and we supported that transition. So 2 of our residents have moved to other transition housing, and then 2 had significant health concerns that weren't being addressed by KGH, and we really had to push to have KGH take them on on a longer term basis. What was happening in both their cases was KGH wasn't addressing their healthcare needs, and then would say, oh, they don't need to live at the hospital, they can go back to the cabins because there's staff on 24/7. Our staff are not nurses. Our staff, we don't have the budget to hire nurses and doctors and PSWs. So in the end, with both cases, we had to strong arm KGH to keep the residents full-time, and by saying that the residents unfortunately weren't allowed at the cabins anymore because their healthcare needs were too great. They were then in both cases properly taken care of by KGH, but it took some strong arming to get it. And we shouldn't have to be in that position, and the people we support shouldn't have to be in that position. But you know, if there was an opportunity to take them back again, we would end up doing that, but just to get them into the right systems. And we have a strong philosophy of second chances. So if it didn't work out the first time, we'd prioritize, and for whatever reason, you know, the loss of housing, it could be just things that weren't meshing, rule following that wasn't happening, or it just wasn't working for the person at the time. We will reprioritize people who've been with us before and evaluate whether the thing that caused them not to live with us has changed. So in the case of somebody who lost their housing, there was nothing they needed to do. We just brought them back because it wasn't their fault. And in other cases, we've worked with the person while they haven't been in the program and managed to bring them back under certain conditions. So we've brought in 4 people back under this second chances prioritization. Unfortunately, 2 of our residents have deceased. In both cases, it was people with significant health concerns, medical concerns that, you know, being on the streets for a long time will just, you know, increase your chances of dying early. And in the city of Toronto, they actually track when people who are experiencing homelessness pass away. Kingston doesn't do this so publicly. So the average age in Toronto is something like 35 when you're male. For your life's average age for lifespan, if you don't have a home. And so unfortunately with both cases, it was, you know, significant health concerns that there wasn't anything left, anything that the staff could do to make a different outcome. And they unfortunately passed away. And then we have 10 that we've counted as discharged or voluntarily discharged. It just depends on the situation. Sometimes it, like living in a congregate setting, is not for everybody. Sometimes people aren't ready to address the reasons that they're struggling with homelessness. And so we take these kind of discharges very seriously and have to go to, we have to go to the board to have a conversation if we're going to discharge somebody from the program, or if they choose to leave the program. And so in of the 35 individuals, we've had 10 discharges, but from that, we've had some second chances and people coming back after a bit of a break. And then, oops, I jumped out of there. And then how we measure success, though, it's not just about housing. And so we are proud that we have provided 279 days of warm, safe places for people to call home. We always, when residents join our program, we sit down with them and have them tell us what their needs are. And usually in the beginning, it's very generic. It's usually something to do with ID, usually something to do with their taxes getting up to date, maybe some medical and dental supports, maybe some mental health and addiction supports. Those are pretty standard. When we're talking about getting people's ID back, almost always we're starting with a birth certificate for most people. Most people come to our program with no ID. And then we have to start with getting their birth certificate, which can take quite a while. We're part of the fee waiver program for the Ontario government. So if somebody was born in Ontario and they need their birth certificate, we can help them get it for free, and we can also vouch for their identity. So it's kind of an easier way to get their birth certificate. We recently got a birth certificate, thanks to Dave's help, for somebody from Alberta who we were told by another service agency it was impossible to get that birth certificate, and we managed to get it just with some thinking and creativity, and some help from friends. So that was exciting when that birth certificate came in. We've acquired birth certificates from England, and there's one we're still waiting for. They've taken the money, but we haven't received it yet, from Northern Ireland. But everything we do starts with, do you have your birth certificate? And if you don't have your birth certificate, you can't do anything in the system. You can't apply for housing. You can't get all of the other ID that you need. So once they have their birth certificate, then we work on their health card. Sometimes we can squeeze that in and schmooze a bit at service. Don't tell. Sometimes I just bat my eyelashes to get ID. And then after the birth certificate and the health card are available, then we have to get the photo ID card, because everybody needs photo ID. You can't apply for housing without photo ID. Some people that we support have had driver's licenses in the past, so we work with them figuring out how to get those driver licenses back. It's more complex and usually involves fines that need to somehow get paid. But we do try to figure that out with them as well. And then almost everybody that we support has had their medical and dental needs neglected. It's very difficult when you don't have a home to deal with medical and dental. So we work to get them into, if they don't have a primary doctor, then Street Health has been a great support for us with nurse practitioners. And then we also try to make sure they've addressed their dental needs and get dental checkups, and then work towards different avenues for dentures, towards dentures often. So a number of people, if they've been without dental care long enough, usually need full extractions of their teeth. And without that, they're in pain. There's infections, there's abscesses, there's broken teeth. So we have to work this system quite a bit to get somebody to the point where we can get those extractions, because OW and ODSP benefits don't pay for the full cost of extractions. We've since developed a dental fund to help support the financial cost of dental care. So when OW and ODSP benefits don't cover the cost, we'll step up and help with the dental fund. And then we're hoping to help generate enough money so that we can pay for dentures eventually too, so people can have nice, healthy smiles. And then we usually refer, if people need, not everybody needs this, but we will refer to addiction and mental health services or Street Health for mental health and addiction supports. And then we very often, if somebody has mobility challenges, we'll bring in home and community care, or if we need a long-term care referral, we'll bring in home and community care, formerly called the LIN, if you remember that, for any mobility support. So home and community care will bring a nurse case manager. We could end up with PSWs for the person, occupational therapists, physiotherapists, and social workers, and all of these care providers come to our site to provide the support, which is phenomenal. It's super helpful for us, especially when somebody's got mobility challenges. And what we've seen in our program, in a number of cases, there's people who are with us that are used to going in and out of incarceration every 2 or 3 months, or through the winter to stay warm and then back out in the summer. In a number of cases, we've had residents not go to incarceration anymore. So just they've just stopped having to go to jail to be able to keep warm. We've managed to convince judges that our program is a better option for people than going to jail if they're up on charges when we meet them. So we've managed 3 times to convince a judge to leave people in the program at the cabins as opposed to sending them to jail. And then we've reduced significantly emergency room visits because we can address through street health or doctors and give them the stability they need to get proper health care through non-emergency supports. We've seen anecdotally, we don't measure this, just anecdotally, a reduction in substance use in residents. We've had somebody find sobriety from alcohol, which was exciting for them to get to that point where they felt confident enough to make that choice. And then we acquired, which I mentioned before, the Canada Ontario housing benefit. When we can, the benefit currently opened up with more money recently. So it was open from April till June and then closed, and then just recently opened up and was closed within 2 weeks because there's so many people applying for this rent supplement. So we're hoping that in December, we have a number of residents that don't have the supplement right now. So without it, they're not going to market housing. So we're hoping that it opens up in December with more money. And then one of the most important successes I measure is when people reconnect with their families. And without those reconnections and the resilience that brings, once they're in housing on their own, they need those extra connections to support them. So, you know, they're more likely to be successful long-term in housing if they've got their families cheering for them as well. So that's one of the times that we get to see those family reconnections. There's lots of tears usually, but from the staff. But that's one of the most important measures of success that we see, when their family members feel confident to be able to come back into the person's life. And then in a daily basis, are residents participating in self-care? Are they showering? Are they changing their clothes? Are they doing their laundry? Are they managing their food? Are they making their meals? Are they taking care of themselves? Are they managing their own appointments? We look at all of those improvements in the person and reflect monthly with the resident to make sure that there's some progress in all of these measures of success. But I'm going to stop talking for a second because we have somebody who's seen our residents in a number of he's worked in a number of different areas of the system, and he's also seen our residents in a number of different areas. So I'm going to let Ryan talk a little bit about what success should look like.
Hey, everyone. So, yeah, the way the city looks at success, I mean, we all know the city does a lot of things ass backwards. And I'm speaking from personal experience, not as a staff at this point. But personally seeing people, you know, wrapped up in that vicious cycle of incarceration and substance use, and finding some place that they can either couch surf on, or if they get lucky and are able to find somewhere where they're able to pay rent. It usually doesn't last long without the proper supports in place. So here, having staff available, seeing people come in who substance use is through the roof, multiple overdoses a week, and then coming in, getting settled here, getting supported, getting services set up, and watching that decrease in substance use, the stabilization of mental health, and less overdoses, less incarceration, stuff like that, has been just a wonderful thing to see, because you don't get to see that very often in this field outside of here. So it's really been nice to see. I can think off the top of my head of several clients who've come in who have experienced multiple overdoses, and since coming here have hardly experienced any. I mean, you can't say it's completely stopped, but it's definitely been a lot less than it was when they were on the streets or in previous rental opportunities. Yeah, outside in the cold. Yeah. So watching that's been a beautiful thing. And like I said, just the stabilization of mental health, having a safe place to lay your head down, know that you can go home, you still hang out with your friends, do whatever you want to do, but then at the end of the day, you can go home and lay down in your own bed, lock your door. It does wonders for people. Yeah, that's really all I got.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, I missed one. Okay, so we've heard a bunch of rumors about fires that have happened at the cabins. And apparently we've lost 20 residents and a whole bunch of cabins to fires, which is not true. We did have a fire on December 5th. And if you can see from the pictures, so the 3 cabins that were affected, one was a total loss and then 2 were partial, and enough of a loss that we just wrote all 3 off. And what it was determined to be was arson. So what we found, the picture I took, the picture on the left-hand side is from the roof of Portsmouth Harbour. So we had a number of challenges around people on this roof misbehaving. We've caught teenagers egging us and throwing stuff, and we even caught city workers throwing eggs at us, which was great. I wasn't very impressed. But the roof has been a problem. So we'd been asking for cameras to be placed on the roof to help deter, or even just a sign to say, you know, that it's under video surveillance to help deter misbehavior from the roof. After the fire, when we looked at all the video footage with the fire department, it was really difficult to understand how the fire started, because it was just suddenly, you know, explosion of fire that started absolutely outside of a cabin. We could see in the video footage every resident accounted for, so we knew where everybody was and they were in their cabins. And so we're kind of scratching our heads about how the fire could have started. Was it somebody who was walking by that wasn't caught on camera and something like that? And then we were like, the roof. We went up to the roof and we could see footprints right in front of where these cabins are. We could see a trail right to them. We could see the grass all patted down, and we found shells of a Roman candle which, you know, explains the video once we understood that. So, and use shells from a Roman candle were in that location. We have some strong suspects, but we don't have any charges from this yet. I don't know what the fire department or police are pursuing, but we have our own kind of suspects that we're kind of watching and listening for to see if we get any admission over time. So that resulted in the loss of 3 cabins, that fire. Thankfully, no injuries. I was one of the staff on site and our other staff on site, having both of us jump to respond right away, and also the residents who stepped up to help us respond as well made sure that everybody was evacuated safely. And then on September 4th, we had a fire that was an accident. There was a lighter that some residents had been buying from the convenience store near Center 70 that was faulty, and you'd think you were done with it, and there was like you'd release the trigger, and unfortunately sometimes there was still a flame and it would stay stuck on. Unfortunately, that particular fire, the person lit their cigarette, walked down to another cabin and had tossed their lighter onto their bed and not realized it was still on, because it would just leave a tiny flame like a pilot light, so you'd have to really watch it. There was no loss of cabins. There was a rumor that we lost 2 cabins in that fire. We did not. The staff had the fire out before the fire department came. And the fire department's right across the street from us, so they got it out pretty quick. We did have to replace a bed because the bed did burn, and we had to clean and paint the cabin, and that was the extent of it. Thankfully, again, no injuries.
On that subject of the fire, Crystal, the second one, just the incident with the lighter.
Yeah.
I happened to be driving by the neighborhood when that was at Center 70 on September 4th when that occurred in the evening.
Yeah.
What was how many, was it one truck that responded?
Yeah, one truck.
Well, actually 2. It came from the one that's down here and the one across the.
And one across the
And
road. Okay, so
there's
2.
residents and 2
Yeah.
staff that were on the bottom.
Yeah, so 3 residents and 2 staff were on between hoses and fire extinguishers were working on it. So before they got to the cabin, so the staff that were on site at the time said that one fire truck from the fire station across the street from us, and then one from the one that's closest to us at Portsmouth responded.
Okay, thank you.
No worries. And then, so we have been looking and looking and looking and looking and looking for a permanent home. The moves are really disruptive to our residents and to our program. If we're only supposed to have people in our program for a year, but we move them every 6 months, it's really disruptive to them. What we see usually a month before the move is we start seeing anxiety build up, and especially from people who haven't been through the move before, not knowing what to expect, stressing about keeping their stuff all packed up and making sure that, you know, it survives the move. And then after, usually we do settle down faster at Portsmouth Harbour, but it usually takes about a month to get residents settled back down into new routines. At the new location, Portsmouth Harbour, it's a little bit faster just because they find it more comfortable. And there's a Tim Hortons really close. I think it helps. And so, you know, doing these moves, we need to stop moving our residents. It's been a great, like in terms of a pilot project in the city, allowing us to try this concept, the concept of people living in cabins as opposed to in higher density or doors in style buildings. But I think we've proven that this model is successful for some people and does help stabilize a number of people. And it's a preferred location. If you're on the streets, that there's a preference for people to come here over other transition housing options. So we need a permanent home. We would like it within the city limits, of course, because we need all the supports from the city and city agencies. We'd like it to be on transit routes, but we are starting to question that one and wondering if we can manage with a shuttle bus instead. It definitely has to have road access. It has to be a minimum of an acre, and it has to be either land that's serviced already or easily serviceable with hydro and water and sewage. It could be with or without a building, because the city council last term did approve buying a modular building that has all of the amenities that we have in our common spaces. So bathroom, showers, kitchen, offices and common space. So they have actually, I don't know where that modular building is. Apparently it's been purchased, but I'm not sure. But there is a building available if there isn't a building on the site. And we do not want it to be in the Inner Harbor or the Rideau Heights area. So that's our criteria. We have been looking and looking and finding and missing out and trying to find a permanent location. So the city of Kingston is voting on 2 locations that have been on the table for a while: Rodden Park in Calvin Park and Rideau Marina in across the river in the East End. So they're voting on those 2 locations November 7th. And then, so there's a survey that people can still do until November 2nd. It only takes about 5 minutes. It's 3 easy questions. It just says, do you think the cabin should be at Rodden Park? Do you think the cabin should be at Rideau Marina? And then there's an open chat text box for adding any other comments that you might have. I will put the link to the survey in the chat when I'm done the slideshow. And then what we are asking our supporters to do is send a letter to council. And the easiest way to do that is to email the city clerk at cityofkingston.ca and let them know if you've interacted with our community, if you've had any experience with our community, if you've seen changes in our residents, if you've had good engagement with our residents, then please let the city know, because people with who support us tend to like just think, you know, it's okay. And it's the ones that don't support that tend to speak up. And so we really need our supporters to speak up and send in letters of support for a permanent location by November 5th. By about that time is how long it'll take to distribute to all of council. So if you get them in by the 5th, they should have them by the 7th. And then I'll put both links into the chat box as well. The end. Oops. And then the last thing I want to talk about is the things we need. So we have a needs list online. There's a spreadsheet that you can access through our website that I'll show you. And it just, all we do is try to keep it up to date on kind of the basic things we need. Residents are responsible for their own food. And we have 2 residents that are here are running a kind of a sharing option for residents who want to pull together money to buy meat orders and make meals together. So with just $50 a day, they're pretty good at stretching money. So just not $50 a day, $50 a month. They get 2 meals every second day. So it's a really great option for residents to be able to stretch their money. And then we always need cleaning supplies. We always need kind of hygiene supplies like shampoo and soap and things like that. And then furniture, we're always on the lookout for small furniture that we can furnish cabins with. One of the things we do in this program is if somebody is housed, they get to take any furniture in their cabins with them so that they get a start with familiar items in their new housing. So that means we're constantly replenishing the cabins with furniture. Small dressers and small desks are really hard to find. We can usually find single beds. It's the dressers and desks that are tough. And right now we're looking for winter clothing and boots for our residents as well. We do have a list of sizes that if you have something like that, we can share with you. We're looking for fundraising ideas, as you've seen from our budget. It's pretty tight. And it doesn't actually reflect a lot of the costs in this program. So for instance, I am a volunteer. The city of Kingston will not fund a manager for this program. And so I'm not sure how they think it'll operate without a manager with 17 residents and 12 staff. I actually just for curiosity's sake, I calculated how many hours I've worked in this project since we opened our doors and what the cost would have been to taxpayers had I been paid for that time, not counting just a base rate of staff, not counting overtime or stat holidays or anything like that, is $320,000. That's how many hours I put into this project to make it work. We're also, so we definitely need fundraising. We just started participating in the charity bingo. So we do have Dave on the call right now who's organizing that for us. So if people want to volunteer for the bingos, that would be great. It's a good way to help raise some money for OLS. And then we're looking for volunteers. We need a board treasurer, a bookkeeper. Our board secretary is currently playing double duty, being the secretary and the treasurer. And then we need support on our welcome committees. That's bringing residents into the cabins. Our alumni support is once people get housed, we support them when they're housed. And then our marketing committee as well, getting more information out to the general population about our program. So if any of these interest you, please feel free to call me or email and talk about the opportunities that we have for volunteering. So I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to take it out of shared screen. And then I'm going to let you ask questions. And we have, well, I'm going to try to take it out of the shared screen. We have residents and staff here to help answer the questions as well. And then as you're asking the questions, I'm going to start putting some of the links that I mentioned into the chat box. Who wants to go first? Stuart?
Just one quick question, and then I'll see if anybody else will jump in. The gentleman that was speaking with the hat just right behind you there, bending over.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, I missed the gentleman's name.
His name's Ryan. He's trying to.
And is Ryan, are you a staff member? I was just trying to clarify your role, or are you also a peer and a staff member? I was just curious about your history. I didn't catch it all.
Kind of a little bit of both. So we've got lived experience with homelessness, addiction, all that fun stuff. I do work here part-time. I also work at public health full-time, but I've held various roles in the community. I was the Hep C community liaison for 1.5 years, street outreach coordinator, a home-based housing prior to that, overdose prevention worker, harm reduction worker. There's really not a lot of roles in this community and in this field that I haven't stepped into at one point or another. So lots of experience supporting our people through various stages of change.
Very good. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yep.
There questions? I don't see anybody. I don't see anybody else waving. Hi, Cynthia.
Hi, guys. Thank you for having us. I'm really excited. It's my first time attending an information session about our livable solutions. Who I am. My name is Cynthia. I'm actually a former resident of Kingston. I actually live in Napanee now, but I'm a member of the Rotary Club of Napanee. And I've been working with the Morningstar mission to learn about homelessness issues and to learn about solutions. And so I really appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. I listened, I took notes, and I'm learning a lot. So thank you.
Well, feel free to come for a tour as well. I know there was a
Thanks.
gentleman that was working on a private initiative with cabins in Napanee. I'm not sure if he's continued. I talked to him about a year ago, but I haven't heard from him since, but I don't know if that's still happening.
What was his name?
I'm gonna have to look it up. He was the one that was also trying to have trailers and then he got shut down. And they
Yeah, yeah,
you know what I mean? Yeah.
yeah. I know who you mean.
But the residents are really hoping for questions.
Let's say that's what we love to.
Terry really wants you to ask him a question. It's so quiet.
Yeah, maybe spot.
No more squishy footstool.
I can ask a question.
Sure.
To any resident that wants to answer, or are you all registered with a city housing list to officially to be on a list to wait for appropriate housing that comes available when it comes available?
Yes, and you have to update every year. And I didn't know you had to update every year. I thought once you register, you're in. But no, and they let me know, oh, I'm not on the housing register, so I have to re-register over and over again. It's they only let you on the list for a year before they take you off.
One of the challenges of the social housing registry for us is that you can either be on the social housing registry or you can receive the COB supplement. You can't have both.
Right.
So we have to decide with residents when we apply for the COB rent supplement. We have to look at whether market housing is feasible for them. And so, you know, if we think it's not feasible, we won't apply for COB. But if we do think that, you know, their likelihood of success long-term is going to be in market housing, then we'll apply for a COB, but they have to agree to be removed from the social housing wait list. It's really frustrating because we want to try all the options and you know, best, you know, kind of wherever we can get housing sometimes, but it's really unfortunate that we have to remove people from the social housing wait list. But again, like Marcia said, most people don't realize that they have to update their file every year. And so they think they've been added to the social housing wait list and then find out a couple of years later that they haven't done an update. If they don't have a home, they don't have a mailing address, they haven't received the whatever notice that gets sent out, then they're going to get dropped from the list. So very often people who are experiencing homelessness actually get dropped off the social housing registry.
Thank you.
I have a quick question for the residents. Do any of the residents have pets?
No, I wish. I miss having pets, but I don't think it's fair to put an animal through being homeless with you. Myself, but I miss having pets.
I think Marcia's been trying to secretly adopt a cat that's strayed
I seen
nearby.
a stray cat and I haven't seen it since, but I would
Um,
think I'm bringing it home if it's if I see it.
We do have a policy that allows pets in the cabins. The residents have to show that they're taking care of themselves first and that they can take care of their pet. And we do have a number of staff dogs that come to the site. So in the video, you saw one of our volunteers' dogs, Oscar, he's feisty. And then I have a dog that's been along for the ride the whole time. And then one of our other staff has a couple dogs that come in as well. So they do get some the animal therapy. The
I play
residents have.
fight with my
Yeah.
dog.
Yeah, Marcia's really good at taking care of the dog when I'm busy or taking her for walks. It's a quiet group. Hey, Dave, do you have any questions? Dave's a member of our board. I can vote him.
And there's somebody else. I don't know. Oh, did I meet him?
Mm-mm. Well, if there aren't any questions,
Here are the answers.
yeah, yeah, or is there any comments and answers that you want to give us instead? Nope.
Well, I just wanted to say, I appreciate that the city of Kingston is looking for feedback from the community in those surveys. Because I'm not a resident of Kingston, I don't feel like it's my place to respond to the surveys or participate. I am very interested in the invitation to come and visit. Thank you. I know that service clubs have big hearts and typically can fundraise quite well. Do you have any sort of service clubs that have either stepped up or have helped in different ways, and how have they helped you?
So Rotarac is currently fundraising for us. Their goal is to raise $18,000 by June. $18,000 is about the cost of another cabin. The manufacturer has committed, if they can raise that number, then they'll, including tax and delivery, have Rotarac make a cabin available for Rotarac. So the Rotarac is working on purchasing an additional cabin. It's going to be dependent on us having a permanent location. We're kind of maxing out our space at Portsmouth Harbour. But they're currently working on that initiative for us. You have to unmute.
Sorry. And when you say you're maxing out your current location, do you have any aspirations for going larger than the 17 or 20 cabins you've ever been at? Do you want to see this as 35 or 40 in one spot, or do you see it as a more better served at the 17 to 20 model?
Our max size, what we've asked for, is 20 cabins. I think our residents are best served by a smaller group, having a smaller group of people together, because they can work together better as a community and be supported properly by our staff. So 20 is kind of our limit. When we did head down this road and we're petitioning, before the cabins existed, but we had a model cabin and we were petitioning council to consider, and we were asking all the other housing providers to consider launching something like this. We did say that what we think would be best for the entire community, because now the by names list, which is the list of people who don't have homes that are known, the by names list currently is sitting at 530 people. And that's just the ones that the city knows about, and the ones that are considered qualified to be on that list. So that means to me the number is closer to 800, 900 people from our wait list, and the people that we know about that are couch surfing and are living in cars and reluctant to access traditional services. So because of that, the need is quite high. So what we originally asked council for was one cabin community in every electoral district. So that would be 9 in Kingston. So if we had 9 communities spread throughout the city with 20 cabins at each, that would be amazing.
And it all depends on, like, say, issues, certain mental issues that people may have. Like right now, it's quiet. Staff has it nice and easy. But sometimes there's issues.
Yeah, we have a pretty chill group of residents right now, so it's pretty boring usually for our staff. But necessary for them to be here. But we what we would see, and if we had smaller groupings, is that we could theme them as well. If we had one to have a cabin community that was all women, in case people have been through domestic violence challenges. If we wanted to have a cabin community that was more geared towards couples, we do accept couples. There's one sitting here right now. And the way we manage couples is that both individuals have to qualify as individuals to come into the program. And they each get assigned a cabin. So we maintain 17 cabins, 17 residents, but each of them get assigned a cabin. We don't care where they sleep. That's none of our business. They're all adults. We don't take anybody under 25 here. And then, so the way they've kind of they each have their own cabin, but one's more of a sleeping area and one's more of a hangout area. But that way, when there's tension, it's hard enough to be struggling through this when you're single, but in a relationship, it's even tougher. So when they're struggling, they just separate into their own cabins. Sometimes I order them to their, they're pretty good. But that way as well, you know, with the other couples or situations, that what we worry about is if there's a couple situation and the couple don't succeed in the relationship and need to break up, we don't want anybody to become unhoused or lose their housing. So this way, if there's a relationship breakup, they still both have housing. Oh, quiet. Yes, Stuart.
Mute.
You're mute.
I keep thinking it's on their way, sorry. Question for Marcia or anybody else. How long have you been in the program, and can you tell me about where you were living before and you're getting into the program, and where you're at in your life now and where you were before? And if you've had improvements in your life, I'd love to hear some examples, please.
Well, I was at pretty much every shelter and ended up going to the woods because I couldn't handle seeing the fentanyl. I couldn't handle seeing people killing themselves literally with the fentanyl was really, really bad at the hub. And like 4 or 5 times a day, ambulance would come, people would be going down, you know, and then seeing young people die, it was just too much. So I went to the woods, and you know, I was kind of helping Crystal look around for spots because she was talking about doing this before. Well, before she did, she was talking about it for a year or a couple of years before it happened, I think. And so she'd always come and see me, and when they first came, she had a hard time finding me. I was never seemed to be at my camp, and never seemed to be where she tried to find me for like over a week, I think it was. She found me, so I went in at the start, and then I left for a bit, and then I came back spring or summer, the start of summer. Yeah, and it's nice. It's sometimes it's nice and peaceful out in the woods, but you're dirty, having to, you know, always getting water, always trying to wash up, cooking something, making a fire when everything's wet, and just, that part sucks. It's nice being able to have a shower whenever you want, be clean, go make something to eat, and yeah, it's I was getting like, you know, my fingertips have really no feeling in it from being frostbite. I was getting infections all the time from cuts and from making fires. I was getting infections, getting them dirty, because you can never be clean enough. You can never clean yourself enough, and I was just so sore. You're just so sore and so weak, and yeah, it kind of sucks being homeless. And if you wanna stay, you wanna talk?
Thank you for sharing. And did you say you had seen where had you seen the fentanyl use? I didn't catch the beginning of part. You said you'd seen a lot of people that were using it. At where?
The integrated hub.
Okay, I just had.
Fentanyl has become the #1 drug of choice right now in this community.
Yeah.
So it used to be crystal meth, that has faded. A lot of people have transitioned from stimulant use to fentanyl use.
I've seen people that were totally against fentanyl that are right hooked to it now. Yeah, I don't really blame them. I've been out in the freezing cold where you can't go in, there's no available space anywhere for you, so you have to be outside around a fire pit, trying to warm up the best you can, and a lot of them just, they wanna go to sleep, and they know fentanyl's gonna be a way for them to go to sleep, where they don't feel cold. They're not suffering out in the cold and freezing. So that's why a lot of them get into it, just to not deal with being cold.
I've heard some suggestions at some city meetings that it would be best to relocate our livable solutions cabins back at Bell Park or near the hub, from a being close to where the dealers come to sell fentanyl. Would that be a good idea?
No. Not at all, because we would have problems with being robbed,
Everybody.
being robbed, a lot of stuff stolen. And it'd make it more available access for people to get at it.
Mhm.
And no, because we would have too many people coming over here and trying to take over here.
The people we support want to move on away from homelessness, and
Mhm.
if what we've expressed very strongly to the city is that the closer we are to where the struggles are, really in that kind of Bell Park area, North End area, then the harder it's going to be for the people who want recovery to move forward.
And we've had the odd time people from help come here, and we had a hard time getting them to go.
Yeah.
I also hear about some perceptions that I mean, I think shelters are good and they have to serve some members of the community that can abide by that, or that can get in at an hour and then you have to be out by a certain hour. There's, in my opinion, that still wouldn't give anybody an opportunity to have any normalcy in their life, or to build upon normalcy to go forward. Could you go forward in a temporary shelter situation, or how does that work out for any of you?
It makes it worse.
Yeah, you never have time, you're always just like, oh, you're sore because you're lugging everything to and from, and then you're walking around when the shelters are closed. And then you're waiting for them to open.
And you can't really sleep because everybody steals all your stuff.
Sorry, you were talking about theft?
Well,
Well, so like when you fall asleep, everybody go through your stuff and take it, whatever they want. So now.
sometimes, but not everybody,
Stuff what you have.
not everybody, but
No.
there are certain.
There's a lot.
And by the time you go there at 8, 9 o'clock. And by the time you get something to eat and you get, you might talk to some people, and you get settled, it's really late. By the time you can get yourself to sleep, and then you're amongst other people, snorers or people fighting or something that's making you not sleep, and you get up in the morning and say, oh man, it's already, it can't be morning yet. Yes, you're not getting the sleep, you're just like dragging, it's like, yeah, it's
Like we find it disruptive to move every 6 months. So the shelter model is moving every day. You're moving every day because you can't keep their stuff. I'm not I understand why we have a shelter model. I don't think it's a way to help people exit homelessness.
Thank you.
we open too late and you know, too early, like. That's 12 hours of space that they're open. But by the time you have something to eat and get all settled and ready, and yeah, you might be going through your stuff, organizing again because it's all messed up, and seeing what you need. That is much time.
Also, the people we support tend to be nocturnal, so that's one of the transitions we see is that people, once they start sleeping at nighttime. And so.
I'm a nighthawk.
Yeah, so the shelter model doesn't reflect the reality that a lot of people in that are struggling with homelessness are nocturnal because they have to be to keep themselves safe. If you don't get that shelter bed, you're not gonna just go to sleep anywhere because you're not gonna feel safe. You might get robbed, you might get hurt. So
gotta
you
just
end up
walk wherever
you end up
yourself away.
walking around and you know moving
Cough.
around and trying to stay warm by moving around. But finding a safe place to sleep when you don't have a bed and a shower.
Though, yeah, the shelters have no showers. I've had to wash myself in a cold sink because you don't have hot water.
Yeah, that surprises me that the shelters here don't have showers. Like, I kind of thought, even
The-
I
the
thought that
hot
would be a
does,
given.
but the one on Concession and the one on Adelaide, neither one of them did.
I know.
So I've had to like just wash up in the sink.
And then you get this, that makes it too long, it's now they're doing drugs in there and all that. It's happening
Yeah,
more.
what were you doing in there?
Can he repeat that bit from the back? We missed it.
I said, when you're taking a shower, washing up in the washrooms at the shelters, well, they're yelling and screaming at you because you're taking too long, or because you are trying to wash up, or you're doing drugs, or you're doing something else in there, or
Like they're accusing you. of
like, yeah,
doing other things.
you get blamed for everything. Don't matter if you're doing it or not doing it. Like, it's just stressful, major stressful in there.
Thank you.
Okay, so it's 25 after 8 and Cynthia's gonna come visit me to have any other questions answered. Come for a tour. Michael, I know
If not, we'll cook supper.
Yeah, there you go. And Michael, I know I've seen you online lots, but you're welcome to come for a tour as well. So I'm gonna let our staff go because some of them want to go home. And say goodnight. And if you have any questions, I'll just put my email in the chat box as well. Just feel free to send me an email, and if you think of something 3 a.m, which I often do stuff like that, send me an email and then I'll try to answer them or have somebody answer the questions for you. But thank you for joining us, and we'll see you. Our next public session scheduled right now is November 7th at council, so hopefully it'll be a successful visit. Yes, fingers crossed.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for the tour.
Thank you.